This needs to stop in World of Tanks, and today's video is going to showcase what exactly needs to stop, how you can avoid these sort of things happening to you in your gameplay, and hopefully you can become a better player and we can educate some of those players that just make these terrible decisions within the game, and hopefully that is going to basically provide some sort of benefit to you guys watching the video. Of course, let me know in the comment section down below what sort of videos you actually want to see. Do you want to see more guides and gameplay and stuff like that? And I think that that's something we could definitely use on this channel to just try and educate as many people. And that Sheridan over there on the right hand side is going to feature within this video as to why you want to kind of avoid doing stuff that he manages to do in this game. As you can see, he's decided that coming across the open field in the Sheridan is a good idea at the beginning of the game. Obviously, at the beginning of the game on Prokhorovka, we have 15 teammates who are sat on the other side of that hill, so going over the top of it is not a good idea whatsoever. And oh, what do we have here? An Object 277 that's decided he's going to come over the top of the hill against 15 opponents and try and win against us. Obviously, terrible idea, absolutely terrible, would not recommend it whatsoever, and of course he's still coming. And then, of course, following the just terrible idea train, the Sheridan then decides it's a fantastic idea to join him, and yeah, 1200 hit points he did have at the beginning of this, and I don't think he's going to end up with 1200 at the end of it. Yes, he dealt one whole full shot into the back of me, but I just don't see the point in it. And yeah, with a terrible turret traverse, that's gone really well for him. And yeah, 2 full health, tier 9 and 10, or tier 10s in the game, gone after a tier 9, lost all of their hit points, and they didn't even take the tier 9 out. Like, this needs to really stop in World of Tanks. It is just disgusting how players feel like they can just do this sort of stuff. I don't know if they think it's fun, because to me, being basically not taking out the tank that you've YOLO'd and lost all your hit points to as a form of trying to have fun is not particularly very fun if you don't actually take out the person that you're YOLOing. Yeah, fair enough if you're just going in to take them out and that's your accomplishment. I don't know what you want to call it, but when you don't even do that, it's just like, yeah, what were you even thinking? Anyway, regardless of what that Sheridan are doing, we're also going to talk about how if this sort of thing happens to you within the game, how you can kind of avoid that really ruining your game. And you saw what we were doing. We were just trying to track for our teammates, because 9 times out of 10 people still can't hit people out in the open. So if we can track them, we'll make it easier for our teammates to pinpoint their weak points. We're also making it easier for our teammates to hit them by trying to get out of the way, and that's something that you can do in these scenarios. Yes, you may still get taken out, because when 2 tier 10 tanks YOLO you and you're in a tier 9, you know, you have less hit points than them. You typically have less alpha, so you can't really complain too much if that happens. Well, you can complain about the fact that they've wasted their tanks on you, but yeah, you can't complain about the fact that you get taken out by tier 10s. However, within this game, what we're now trying to do is showcase what we can do when this does happen, when you've made the best of the situation that happened at the beginning of the game and you're left on 184 hit points out of 1700. Now, out of the game, I mean, in a tier 10 game, 2700 damage is not awful within this, but you know, it's not the pinnacle tier, and if we had more hit points, we would have been able to be more versatile in this game, poke a couple more ridge lines and be able to feel confident in our ability to get some more damage. However, we've got to play very passively, because we are a one-shot to everything in the game, and we are even a one-miss to the artillery within the game, because obviously balance mechanic don't even have to hit you to take you out. And there you go, we've poked once. We're not going to poke the third time to get the third shot out, because within that period of time at which we're firing those 2 shots in quick succession, we give the opportunity for the enemy team to then locate us on their screen, and then they can put a shot in. So although we may have been able to get that extra 320 damage from that shot, what would have probably happened is we take a shot in return. So sometimes you have to think about autoloaders in that regard, and there will be an autoloader video coming up soon where we cover all of that sort of stuff, where you can learn how to basically play autoloaders, or at least that's the intention of the video. But with this, we are now in a pretty good scenario. You know, we've got 10 tanks on our team, 7 on the enemy team. It's a pretty decent matchup. And so what we can do from this point is just be the passive spotter for our teammate. You see us, what we're doing here is we're going along the railway track. Why are we going along the railway track? Well, that's because that little gap actually provides view range for our teammates to be able to get some shots, and so yes, it is a good idea. And once again, those 2 shots, then we pull back down because we get spotted, and it gives the opportunity for teammates or for the enemy team to then get shots on us, which we of course don't want. You see us also moving around the map, just making it really weird, our kind of patterns of movement. That's because we don't want the artillery to miss us, so we're just going to make it really difficult for them to predict. Obviously they could still get it right, but you know, if you can make it as hard as possible, that's going to be good. Obviously 3,200 damage, not a bad result, and what we can do now is be a bit more forward thinking because we have the 5 tank advantage. It's going to mean that the opponents are then looking at 5 more tanks than what are available, so it's going to be hard for them to pinpoint us specifically. Obviously what you saw us doing there was just trying to get 1 shot into him, whilst also moving over to the right hand side. You saw that we waited for us to actually reload the full shell before we fired. That's because what we want to do is make sure that we're getting the best DPM possible within this game. So yeah, it's all about thinking about the little things within the game when you've had a game like this, to make sure that you don't do anything silly, and especially when you get so much health taken away at the beginning. There's nothing worse than when you don't actually manage to pull out a good result, is because, you know, sometimes that will happen. And although we should have waited right there to be able to reload that shot fully, I wasn't sure if the 257 was going to be able to get a shot on us, which would have been horrible, and we probably would have lost even more damage. And you can see us just trying to move because the T92 really does have to just touch us with his gun there. Unfortunately for him, he decides, oh, it would be a fantastic idea if I drown myself, which, yeah, not particularly a great idea. Now that isn't necessarily the best game, but what I'm trying to showcase on the channel now is some good replays where we managed to deal with opportunistic kind of things within the game where maybe you couldn't have the best game that you possibly could because of other players on the enemy team having a brain fart, but at least in this one we managed to pull out that result, and we gave you the ideas that you can use in your gameplay to have those good games. Let's look at another replay to showcase further what we're talking about. The next replay to talk about today is on Fisherman's Bay. We are playing once again in the auto reloading standard B here, and this replay is not necessarily some direct misplay by the enemy team. It's talking about the way that they obviously thought about the battle that was in hand, and how they managed to really mess it up and mean that they actually ended up losing a lot of the damage that they could have potentially done, and ultimately cost them the victory. And within this replay, we've managed to get the fully upgraded gun now, so we are now with the 320 Alpha, I believe it is, instead of the 240. That's off the top of my head. We've obviously got the Chieftain Mark 6 here, and we've got the IS-7 in front of us. What I always like to do on Fisherman's Bay, for those of you who don't know, is just to get the early spots on the people crossing, because often they are usually heavy tanks. You'll outspot them, and then you can get some damage as they're kind of sat there side on to you, and yeah, it's nice to be able to farm down those opponents before they get into the town to battle with your heavy tanks, and just helps out your team. And that's the key thing with this game, is just trying to help out your team as much as possible. Obviously we pin the Super Conqueror down here, we'll put 1 into him, and then we'll go for the blind fire, and we manage to hit him again, and we do track him because we get the +5 critical damage in the top right. You see that we've actually got +7 on this actual number. That's because we hit a +2, which means that you've just damaged a module, and then the +5 is for when you actually detrack someone. So look at that as well as additional information that you can use. Now in this game, we aren't going to poke. Yeah, we've got 1 shell reloaded, but our DPM sucks if we just fire off our shell in a single shot mode without fully reloading the tank, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. There's no point in us poking a ridgeline with only 1 shot as well, because quite possibly the enemy team, well, almost definitely the enemy team will have more alpha damage than we have in this tank. Obviously you see us going into a bit more of an aggressive position here. That's because I want to make sure that within this position I can spot that Object 705, because he is plenty of view range, or within plenty of view range. I noticed that there is a medium tank coming up on our right hand side, so we have to be a little bit aware of that. But as long as we can put one shot into this guy, we'll put another one in, and then as talked about in the previous gameplay, we move back. There's no point getting that third shot in because we're going to take damage potentially, and then later on down the line in the game it could end up costing us, you know, the ability to put out 3 shells because we got taken out with the first one because we didn't have the hit points, and so you have to think of about that as well. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes you do have to fire off all of your shots, especially if it means you can take that tank out of the game. Within this game, for example, this is where the enemy team really make the misplay, and where you need to stop doing that if you are playing on World of Tanks with this sort of setup where you're kind of winning the game. You've got advantageous positions because at the moment we're in a bit of a sausage sandwich, to be honest. The enemy team have pushed aggressively on the left hand side of the map if we look at the mini map, and we've moved into the town, and predominantly all of our tanks are sat in the town facing off against a couple of tanks. You know, there's not that many. We've got obviously the 2 artillery sat in base as usual. And then we've got us in this kind of central mid-ridge where if we kind of push towards the town, we then get taken out by a lot of the tanks that will be kind of sat in the town area. And then if we try and stay where we are, well, the enemy team are progressing down that flank, and that's going to mean that we are going to be getting hit from multiple angles, and no matter what angle we take, we're going to be getting hit. So there's always that. Now within this game, we managed to take out the enemy artillery. That's obviously a really beneficial thing to do. I find that when you get the artillery out the game, it really can help, because that means that you're taking the RNG out of the game. You don't have to get hit by them for thousands of damage. However, what you'll notice now, the enemy team have got themselves into a really defensible position, and this is one of the most defensible maps if you manage to get into this sort of setup. However, you'll see in the top left hand corner that tank destroyer is moving forward, and that's the mistake. He's moved forward into a position where the whole of our team are going to be able to basically get some side shots into them, and you can see the T-54 coming once again in towards them. If they just stayed and spotted for the team, that AMX-30 would have been taken out very quickly, would have removed the vision out of the game, and they didn't need to take any damage, but instead the T-54E1, the Object 752, the T-54, they're all being very aggressive, and it's something I would not ever really recommend on this map. Once you've won that flank, once you've won that area of the map, you can use it. You can then use that area of the map to be able to spot for your team, and then you can just basically farm all of the people, because look at the town area for us. They've been all taken out. If they hadn't been aggressive and lost all of their hit points to us who were sat in the mid-ridge just farming them, then we would have easily been taken out, because all that would have happened is the team that may have potentially won in the town area would have come up from behind me, put a couple of shots into me, and then that would have been pretty much it for us. And then even if they just spotted us, then their team that were sat up in that top left hand corner, A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, would have been able to basically get shots into us, and there'd been nothing we can do. Instead, they've pushed super aggressively and they've lost all of their health for it, and this is the sort of play that you never want to do in the game. Even if your team are all doing it, don't do it. It is one of the most silly things to do on Fisherman's Bay. You've done all of that hard work, you've won that flank, you've really worked hard against it, and then you're going to throw it all away by just randomly advancing towards the opponents, which never really works. And here you go, a result where we managed to basically have one of the easiest games I think I've played in World of Tanks in a long time, where we picked up 4,800 damage in a tier 9 with 700 assistance damage, and we literally didn't even take a hit. I don't think anyone even shot at us within this game, and so yeah, it allows me or a player like me to be able to just farm you if you do push down that flank, and so that is the aim of these videos. If you do enjoy looking at these and learning and thinking about the different things within the different maps, and hopefully that will showcase within these videos, then let me know in the comment section down below and subscribe for more. There's some amazing tank builds that you can use within the game on screen right now. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.